Well, welcome today to the 19th of January, our trade letter today, and what we're going to be discussing. If you've had a chance to have a look at the newsletter, which is down in the post, and also the people who would have received by email, we're going to be coming up an unusual topic today and just delving a bit more deeper into it to see where the challenges are and what we're seeing. Obviously, the updates, obviously, lots of challenges around at the moment. But today we're going to be talking about the Trump and the Greenland, the political debate, its logistics, route control. Each kind of day we're going to be covering certain topics, and I thought logistics would be a good one today because no matter what you do, logistics still has to move. So containers, shipping, freight, and everything else has to move. And sometimes moving is the challenge because as much as you can have, tariffs, trade, barriers, and everything else, vessels still got to navigate. So again, it's who controls access, strategic maritime corridors, Arctic routes. Again, we've seen that already with China recently in the last year or so, and ultimately this gives a lot of uncertainty in the market. Gives it a lot, and it gives people the opportunity either to increase rates or make money, or people look at the supply chain. So today we're going to look at routes, the cargo vessels that must navigate, decide whether goods can move through these critical pathways. The answers will determine the competitive advantage. So again, it's keeping ahead of the game. We try and keep ahead of everything. Why Greenland matters to trade. Greenland sits in an emerging Arctic corridor. So we've already seen that. There's reasons why that's needed, but we notice that, it plays an important role to how things move around. So again, it's just thinking about the geography becomes trade leverage. Again, understanding how controls can be made. What we don't probably see, but there's probably negotiations going about whether they're this clever and whether they're looking at. But when there's huge amounts of money involved, I'm pretty sure, with climate change, energy security, and all these other things, this is just another thing. Yes, political. We can't determine what's going on at the moment in the US. I'm not here to be political. Ours is more about how do we trade in these difficult situations. Geography is the logistics power. We've seen that over the many years. So when we look at history, it repeats itself. There's always something that happens. And if you have a chance to have a look at the YouTube channel, it'll give you the opportunity to have a look and see the history of origin, of how origins played an important role constantly with things ever changing. So again, we see that. Again, when strategic geography comes intertwined with security policy and trade, it feels the impact. So what we're saying is trade operations always feel that impact. But normally, your freight forwarders and other things are normally ahead of the game. They normally know what's happening. And, just looking at the map and you can see how when things happen, it can have a huge effect on your supply chain. So again, transit permissions, access rights become negotiable. Inspection regimes enhance security. Again, we're seeing that a lot more. Insurance, again, that risk premium, again, we saw that with the Land of Good Hope, where people had to use that. And again, the security, if they didn't, and in the end, as you know, shipping lines decided to reroute, just added an extra week or 2 weeks. So, we're seeing supply chain really, really changed over the last few years. And we're certainly going to see 2026 is going to be a huge challenge. We're seeing issues within Europe. Europe's kind of not falling apart. It's the wrong thing to say. But there's a lot of infighting there and how they control. They've got CBAM. So they're bringing CBAM in. It's another political way of controlling things. And again, that puts more pressure on the supply chain. We've got Trump tariffs, which now overnight, as you've probably seen, he's going to put extra tariffs on because the UK, obviously, within the Greenland and NATO. So again, that puts huge challenges. As a UK business, how do we control that? Or any business, or if you're based in America, how do you control your costs? So again, lots of things. Access and capacity tightens, preferential treatment. Goes to aligned traders. So again, who's the winners here? Whose side do you play? Do you play US? Do you play EU? Or do you play China? It's a difficult one. To me, the three winners out of this in the next few years, I see certainly China. I see the US. I see US, trying to pull in that power. I see BRICS within the middle of that, and I see Russia playing an important part. So we've got these three key areas that we're going to see a lot of challenges in. Obviously Russia don't control anything, and they're not a massive player. but certainly when it's certainly with what's happening, puts a lot of uncertainty. So, think of Russia more strategically of how that can affect the market if whatever happens with Ukraine. Remember, if they take Ukraine territory, which it's looking like they're going to do, one of the major ports in Odessa, as a major route to Turkey and other places, they could have control of that. So again, that puts lots of pressure on strategic and logistics and supply chain. Again, logistics control is moving upstream. So pre-booking systems, carriers and forwarders implement advanced screening before accepting cargo now. We're seeing that more and more, isn't it? And there's a real reason with that. We're seeing that certainly with banks wanting to know more and more details, particularly with the volatile markets we're seeing. Pre-lodgement checks, documentation and compliance. Again, I can't honestly emphasize the importance of your documentation. There is nothing difficult about exporting and importing. And don't let anybody fine you. It's very, very simple as long as you understand what you have to do, as long as you understand what you have to give to the freight forwarder or the carrier. Strict criteria determine which shipments are accepted and not. So again, if you get it wrong, you might be limited space and you might be in a situation where because you're not doing your paperwork correct or it's not being checked or using a freight forwarder who's passing it on and it gets stuck in somewhere, that you lose your potential of shipping and you might not ship them for another 2 or 3 weeks. Enhanced due diligence on customers and cargo creates additional gatekeeping because they want to make sure now that when you're moving goods, wherever you're moving, you've got traceability. I know I harp on and go on and on and on, but it's very important to start thinking is get your supply chain, understand your volatility as a company and how you're going to cope and what traceability are you doing with your buyers or with your suppliers? Again, buyers importing your goods if you're an exporter, suppliers who are supplying you. Do you have that full traceability? Because in my experience, not particularly, a lot of companies do a great job. They don't go to nitty-gritty though. They say, yeah, well, we're buying it's an origin, but how do you know? So again, doing them ultimate checks. Again, critical insight shipments are now stopped before they move. So you're finding things don't even move. They get picked up and they just sit there. So again, it puts that lot of pressure on you. We say borders are no longer neutral. That's my kind of take on it. The traditional concept of borders as neutral throughout points has been replaced by a new reality. Border now operates sophisticated risk sorting systems. So there's a lot of things now that are checked. And certainly this came into light when the Trump tariffs, we saw how the US was being able to adapt very quickly to the ever-changing border controls and charging, etc. And we're certainly seeing that with e-commerce, with the £135 minimum in the EU. They've tried to stop that now. And they've also the de minimis, as you may notice. They stopped the de minimis in the US because obviously they were just being flooded the market. And ultimately, a lot of these, whether we like it or not, these e-commerce companies are having a huge advantage over the marketplace because they're sending goods in under the value. How do you know it's under the value? No duties, no taxes. It's a competitive advantage. Whether you like it or not, they've used and abused or whatever they've done with the system, they've used it to their advantage. They probably haven't abused it. They've just probably used the loophole. What's that? At the end of the day, the very clever companies will do that. Again, data credibility, the quality, consistency of your data is so important. That's why I introduced the Trade Intelligence Hub to start to understand that, that data, trade history, past compliance, again, your performance, again, that'll be more scrutiny now, as you've seen. Evidence supporting documents. I can't, honestly, the more and more I talk about this, obviously, I live and breathe this. What evidence do you have in place? What evidence do you have of all your suppliers? What strict routines do you, what strict audits do you do with them suppliers or with your buyers? Do you do any? Okay, the buying, it's great when you're making lots of money. But what happens if something happens, like we're seeing that volatility in the market? You got to be on top of it, so make sure you're checking it. And again, it could have an effect on the way you move cargo. So again, we've outlined 3 signals. Where trade really breaks is data misalignment, unclear responsibility. Who's got the responsibility? Everybody says, well, my freight forwarder or my carrier or whoever does that. It's not their responsibility. You have full responsibility. Again, evidence, lack of proper documentation, audit trail is very important. And that risk transfer, that risk and your Incoterm. How many times do we see that DDP, X works, all these Incoterms that people don't understand what they're using. And then when something happens, you leave yourself wide open under traceability and also very volatile. And I put these failures points are interconnected because they all connect. It's the weakness in one area And again, there's no reason for it. Keep watching this. We're going to be putting lots of YouTube videos on here to support you, to get you to start to understand what Incoterms, why X works. There's an X works video on there. Watch it. So the channel's here to support you. It's not here to be political or anything else. It's here to support businesses who are importing and exporting, to give you the best opportunity to make sure you can grow in the global market. And we're there to help you if it's needed. Again, we've got lots of tools you can use to work that, but keep watching the videos. We spend a lot of time. And again, why we left it so late to introduce the channel, because we wanted it to be right. We've been working a lot on AI, as you know, for the last 3 years. So my mind's been very focused, and obviously we've built also a level 4 diploma course that now is Ofqual approved. So we'll be introducing that as a full supply chain. Trust me, you do that supply chain level 4 and you'll know absolutely everything about the supply chain, because I've covered every single topic that you need to cover in that whole transport, from export and importing to customs, to understanding risk, to having your strategy in place, to doing your research, to understanding your marketing, everything put together, understanding your sustainability, what's the sustainability. And so it's all there. And again, it's there supporting you, and we'll be pushing it out. In the coming months, we're just going through a few, getting everything set and ready, and we'll probably launch that in March. Probably the end of March will be the first course, which will be on the research in international history. They're great courses, and you really enjoying being, and it's very interaction. So a lot of interaction there when you're on it. So again, please join us. Compliance, leak and fix. Incoterms, I can't stress enough. I've spent my life selling Incoterms or delivering Incoterms here in the UK and obviously worldwide. And again, just if you get that right, that's one of the big areas that you'll really be ahead of the game. Weak valuation, again, insufficient empathy declared, values, triggers, customs queries. Again, make sure that valuation, if you're selling a product, you're selling that product. So whatever the price, if you're doing company to company, you're undervaluing. Again, be very careful what you're doing. Origin, again, we see it, origin. We assume the origin is correct. Again, you need to have documented evidence. And again, you mismatch your documentation. Again, making sure the solution, this is why we built the simplified customs diagnostics. It's 395 quid, guys. 395 quid will save you a fortune. It gives you a full report, gives you everything. You put the information. We don't tell you what to put in. You put the information in there. It's asking you very specific questions. We built that over 4 years. We know what triggers and we know where the areas are. I can't stress enough, for 395 quid, you can save yourself thousands. I must save companies thousands and thousands of pounds every time I go and visit a customer. I just see it. I just see all the areas. And, it's again, just looking at that and checking it and making sure you're ahead. Again, trade history, route control always wins. We saw in the trade history Silk Road era, canal construction, age of exploration, Arctic opening Greenland. Greenland is not an anomaly. It's the latest chapter in an ancient story. So again, people say, technology changes, route control remains ultimately the trade weapon. No question. There's reasons. I don't know what reasons why they want Greenland. That's, I'll leave that to the experts in the politics side. But for me, it's a very strategic move, and it can really play a key role. And, that's the history. It's there, and if you join us, like I say, on our diploma course, you'll understand how history works and everything else. And we're going to try and put some more courses on here so you can enjoy. That's it. Thanks very much, everybody. Thanks for joining us today. We'll see you tomorrow. We'll be on another topic tomorrow. We are choosing topics every day, what are coming to life, and where we see that we could talk about. Hopefully you're enjoying it, and hopefully we'll see you soon. Thanks very much for joining us.